aiding their content creation process. So if anyone wants to pop into that, that would be fabulous. And I will start sharing my screen. I'm going to present my entire window because I've got a few links to share. Okay, so can you see that lovely pink site? Is that a yes?
Yes. Got your site.
Perfect. And I've popped the link in the chat as well, so you can access it in your own time. So thank you for joining me. My name is Helen Cardias-Manos, and I'm a technology, e-learning and innovation leader at a school in Sydney. I also work with a variety of different universities as a pre-service teacher, sessional academic and tutor. So I work with students across the range of K to 12. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about, and part of what drove me for my innovator project in VIA 20 was about enabling students and giving them the skills to be effective content creators. And so this presentation is just a little bit of a summary of what that looks like in a classroom, what sort of skills we're teaching, how it links back to our Australian curriculum, and some examples of things that I've been working on with children from kindergarten as content creators right through to year 7. So why student content creators? I'm particularly interested in how students can use Google tools to develop their ICT skills of content creation. So that's skills of digital design, and also their ability to develop and implement an understanding of UX and user interface principles. So in the chat, I've popped in a link to just a brainstorming session on what sort of skills we're teaching when we're encouraging our students to be content creators. So these are just some of the things that I particularly have been focusing on during the most recent lockdown in Sydney, Australia. But if you have any other skills or ideas, please feel free to add them to the slide. Some of these, like typing, for example, is part of a ongoing conversation I've been having with our IT department around our children in kindergarten and year 1 and what sort of skills we need to be helping them foster. But it's as specific as that and as broad ranging as creativity and communication and synthesizing information. So I'd love to see what other people think in regards to that. I might just pop into the slide. Yep, evaluating, definitely. That's definitely a really important skill. And again, something that I've noticed working with kids across K to 12, but also at that pre-service university level, that we really need our students to have that strong understanding of evaluating the sort of information that they're finding and being able to, I guess, compartmentalize their knowledge and understanding. So I'll just move on so I can give some specific examples. So I'm talking from an Australian curriculum perspective, and I'm not too sure where the audience is from. But in Australia, we have, as part of our Australian curriculum, we have a focus area called the ICT Capability Framework. And within that, we teach our students how to investigate with ICT, how to create with ICT, and how to communicate with ICT. Recently, this is being rebranded as digital literacy. And you'll notice the more colourful wheel over here on the right-hand side is our digital literacy framework that we're moving towards implementing as of next year. And we've now got a section which I'm really excited with as part of this digital literacy framework, which is all around creating and encouraging and developing skills in our students to be content creators, to understand how to wield digital tools to be content creators. This also fits within our curriculum within a digital technologies framework. So what I do as a specialist integrator and e-learning leader is I teach this particular framework to students from kindergarten right through to year 7. And then in high school, they then, obviously work with specialised high school teachers. But what I focus on is a digital technologies and design and technologies curriculum. And within that, I teach computational thinking, systems thinking, and design thinking. So students as content creators very much aligns with this framework of students creating solutions to problems using these sort of thinking strategies and working strategies. So what sort of tools have I used for this? And I tend to be mostly with Google tools, but I do use other things as well. But I also like tools that are free or tools that are easily accessible by students, and also that build those transferable skills. So if we're working with something like Google Slides, for example, the skills that I'm developing in my students there are applicable to a variety of different other desktop or publishing application software. So things like Google Slides, Google Sites, Jamboard, online audio recorders, again, another free tool, Google Drive, Earth, Maps. Minecraft is a fantastic tool for creating or encouraging students to be content creators. I'm in the process at the moment of getting some students in year 3 and year 5 to build their own games in Minecraft, build their own esport worlds. My year 3s are currently building Minecraft worlds modeled off stories like The Three Little Pigs, and building things like traps to trap the wolf in The Three Little Pigs. So again, students are creating content in that way. Games is something that I do a lot of, again, with the Microbit or Scratch Junior. Creating sounds and soundscapes through things like Chrome Music Lab and GarageBand. Really exploring what Creative Commons is. So I actually teach Creative Commons from about year 2, and how to implement that in students' own work and projects and WeVideo. A tool that I've become really, I absolutely love, and I've been using it quite a bit with my students, particularly online, is Remove BG. I'm not sure if anyone's come across it, but it's an AI tool that actually removes the background of photos. So I used to spend hours in Photoshop, trying to make my backgrounds transparent, and this does it for me in the click of a button. And my students have been using this as well, so it's fantastic. So some example projects. So this is something that I've been working on this year, particularly with my year 4 and year 5 students, and I do a lot of app smashing with this. So we've been looking at how we can remix images using Google Slides, Remove BG, and Creative Commons. And here are some examples of the sort of things that my students have come up with. So we were doing some research around polar bears. And so one of the things we were talking about is how we can create an image to reflect us, seeing a polar bear for the first time. And so the students, we went through the process of how do we find Creative Commons images? How do we save and download those images? How can we import those into Google Slides as a background? How can we use Remove BG to remove a background of a photo of ourselves and then kind of mix it all together? This was quite popular. In fact, a lot of my students ended up sending me photos they'd remixed of their parents. So this one at the bottom left-hand corner is a student's father that she remixed a variety of different Creative Commons images with her father to create this new image. So it was great that I was able to share these skills with the students, and then they were able to take it in a different direction. Through this site as well, you'll notice that I've got links to the actual teaching site that I use with the students and other resources and ideas that feel free to just borrow, steal, use, whatever might work for you. Videos is another one that I love working with students. So again, using something like WeVideo and developing skills in using layers and editing and green screens to create news reports, entertainment, and infomercials. So this is a year 6 project that I've been working on, and the girls have been developing skills in using a green screen to develop any one of those things. So I gave them an inspiration piece, and then they went and off and they created their own versions of those pieces, and telling their own stories, being a creative or dramatic story, or creating an information video or an infomercial or a commercial or whatever they wanted. And it was quite lovely again to see the breadth of videos that the students created and how they were able to demonstrate their development of those skills. So again, on the site you can watch these at your own leisure. Google Sites. So one of the things that I've been working on with my girls, this is a Year 5 project, is on user experience and user interface. And we've been using Google Sites to develop an interactive website which informs or engages readers. So I've a couple of examples here. The girls were asked to do a research project on their local area, and they presented it using a Google site. So you can see I basically just gave, you know, mini lessons on different aspects of using Google Site, and then they went on sites and went off and created a website where they had to embed content and insert, you know, maps and images and you know, write information about their local area and things like that. And you can see these are just some examples. The girls have, you know, put quite a lot of effort in and have really developed an understanding of how to engage their reader, how to engage their user, how to create interactive websites, why that's important, you know, and then convey the information they've been learning in a different way. So that's one on a local government area, and here's one on polar bears, which is another student loved our polar bear unit and decided she wanted to make her website on polar bears. So this is, again, things that she's included, including facts, including the correct use of referencing of images, inserting images, embedding information, creative interactive content, and things like that. So giving students those skills. I've since had students create design portfolios in Google Sites, and I've got other students who had just made their own passion projects of, one created like tunes to chill to during lockdown and things like that. So it's great to see, again, the skills that we're developing, them applying them in their own passion projects and ideas. Again, looking at using Google Slides to create infographics, brochures, and interactive posters. So this was a unit, again, I worked with on Year 4, and looking at how we can use Google Slides and Creative Commons images, and going through the process of how do we import images, how do we, you know, edit text, how do we add drop shadows, and why that sort of thing is important. So building up their digital design skills. Ultimately, we ended up connecting their posters to a Makey and made it interactive by coding different sounds that a user would touch. For example, the beak of the bar-tailed godwit, and then they would have recorded their voice giving some information to add, I guess, depth to their poster. So another fun activity, and this was done with kids that were in Year 1, so you can really, you know, develop those content creative skills with little kids too. So the girls were working on narrative as part of their literacy work with their classroom teacher. So when they were working with me, we developed that further by building their skills of typing, of inserting images, of using drawing tools on their iPad to draw their own images, and then build a book in Google Slides. We then published their book and shared it on Seesaw, and then Seesaw creates a QR code, which I then printed and stuck onto their books, and they took it home, and their parents were able to scan the QR code and listen to their child reading the story. So again, using Google Audio, we recorded them reading their story. And so there was a whole project around building those ICT skills and students creating their own book, their own interactive book, reading their book and sharing that book with their stories. And they wrote quite in-depth stories as well, and you know, really looked at how we can use, you know, drawing and you know, traditional drawing, hand drawings and digital drawings to illustrate and make their book come alive. Games is something that I do a lot of, and so I've just got some examples here. This one again is Year 2. I specifically chose this because we were doing some work around, you know, around different places around the world. So we use Google Maps and Google Earth to explore different places around the Earth. The girls then worked through taking images in Google Earth and screenshots and whatnot from Google Maps, and then they used those as backgrounds to games or to incorporate in a scratch game about, you know, places around Australia. So you can see this particular student here has taken the Google Earth image of the Sydney Opera House and inserted that into her game, and this part of her game does involve that location. And I've just got some examples there that you can play with. Again, year one, one of the projects I've been working on with them is creating sound effects and soundscapes for books. So we've been using Chrome Music Lab and GarageBand for that. So we've been working on a book called Chicken Divas. And so the girls have been recording themselves reading the book, making sound effects for the book. So recording themselves with those sound effects, and then using Chrome Music Lab to create a an audio tune or background tune for the text, and importing that into GarageBand. So that essentially we're building towards making an audio book that the girls are going to be able to share with family and friends. So these are just some of the projects that I've worked on with kids, and you can see that I do a lot around teaching children how to explicitly use tools and Google tools to develop their own content and ideas. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to work with you. One of my Google Innovator project was actually broke off into two smaller Google Innovator projects. And one of them, the offshoot, was the Marvelous Mrs. K, who really builds that capacity in students in using digital tools for content creation. So yeah, that's all for me. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to stop presenting. If there are any questions, please pop them into the chat or just unmute and ask. My details are on the website. I can pop the link